All right, so this is part 2 of the podcast, and we do have updates. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things that are changing, and there's a lot of feedback that you got from part 1. What's some of the feedback that you got from part 1?
Keep up the fight, because the voices for everyone that's experienced the same thing, they're not being heard. And since Erick's case is just like blown up, and every day, I know you see this, I try to put something on social media that responds to the public, just to kind of inform them. Also, I've had quite a few folks reach out to me wanting the story on different levels, other reporters. As a matter of fact, I had an email this morning come in that it's a production company. They're wanting to do like a documentary about it and how someone like Erick or yourself has experienced war, and then when you come back, the system has failed them. So it's very powerful. So it's a great movement. I have to thank you. Like I said, you took this on and said, this is what's going on with this SF guy. It's unfair. I've been fighting this battle myself.
Yeah.
And now I'm challenging a judicial system, a VA system that's corrupt, et cetera. And I think the biggest issue right now is that we have to change the way that the VA is working, because I looked at information yesterday, and someone sent this to me. They said, Neysa, do you know how much money is spent on PTSD for one veteran? This blew my mind. Do you know that it's $1.2 million per veteran? Imagine, I want to know where that $1.2 million is going, because you're not getting that treatment. My husband definitely is not getting that treatment.
Is that the VA's claim?
That is what they're saying. It's $1.2 million per PTSD.
I got $20
veteran.
of that.
Exactly. I'm laughing because I'm like, where do you get this money from? Because even if you break down 100%, what is it, $3,800, whatever it is a month, that you get, benefit. I'm not sure what the number is.
I get over $4,000.
Well, he gets more too because he was contractor.
Yeah.
Labor, Department of Labor, but because he broke his back basically.
Yeah.
But just whatever the number is, just take that number, times it by 12 a year, times it by what your average lifespan is, because I think they've got Erick checking out at 62 years old, so they're banking on he's done at 62. We don't have to pay.
Thank God. Is what they'll say.
Or they put him in jail to where benefits are taken away. So they have all these outlets that they remove this money. Where's 1.2 million going when you have a doctor that sees you 5 minutes? What is his salary? What?
Yeah.
All the way down the line.
And they'll just give you trazodone, Ambien, and the drugs, and then move you on with your life.
So again, it's exposure. So again, I have to thank you, and I have to thank everyone else who's responding to your podcast, responding to me on social media. This is not an embarrassment for me. I said that to you last year. I've got my haters, you know what I mean, that are like, oh, she has a mugshot from last year. No, that resulted from when my husband went to Emory, and he saw Hamas protesters, and he came and attacked me. And during this scuffle for me to get safe, I broke his arm, not intentionally. So when he calls for medical, what does law enforcement do? Oh, she did this, she's got to go to jail. All my charges were dropped. And I embrace it. I look at it and I laugh and I go, if someone knew the story, just because you're arrested doesn't mean that you're guilty. Just like my husband.
Yeah.
Just like anybody else who's been arrested on something. I look at Trump all the time. He has the mugshot hanging up in the White House. It's injustice. So what you're doing right now is so important that we expose all of it, whether it's judicial, whether it's the VA, whether it's these mental health facilities that are claiming to be community care service, because they're not doing their job. They're not following the guidelines at all. The judge.
What do you think? Do you think it's a? Because I thought about this when we had the conversation prior to the podcast. Do you think it's a Utah? I don't know anything about the justice system outside of Utah because that's what I'm dealing with. Mm-hmm. But everything that I've seen in my own personal case, where I read documentation and I'm like, this is a lie. Mm-hmm. And then you go to contest the lie and they just go, well, you just got to, the lie is the lie and just got to deal with it. I'm like, no, maybe that's how you're used to operating because it seems like you guys are bullies. There's a cult, there's a club, there's a whatever this is, but you picked on the wrong family.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to sit back and allow these people to bully me.
Right.
So is this something that you think is a Utah problem or is it a judicial nationwide problem?
I think it's a nationwide problem. And I think what happened is when we flipped from a traditional society, you know what I mean, by traditional to a contemporary society, that was when everything changed. It's like, well, we're going to do things our way. We're not going to follow the law anymore. We saw that. We see that with administrations. When someone in leadership changes, their all of their belief system filters throughout the community, and that's what someone jumps on and says.
Can you give me an example of a procedure? Because there's certain inherent constitutional rights that you're afforded during due process, and I had instances in the courtroom where I know they're not following due process. My lawyers object, saying they're not following due process, and they just blow it off like it's not a big deal. Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, so to me, it's like it's triangulated. So you have your judicial system, you have the prosecutors, and then you have law enforcement. So law enforcement writes the report, right? It goes to the prosecutor, they look at it. The law enforcement may have to come in and, testify in front of a judge to say this, and this. But when you look at that and you look at the players that are in this, they're following the rules. They're making their own rules, is what I should say.
Yeah.
I have examples for you today. This is what I wanted to talk about. The first podcast we did was very emotional for me. I explained that to you. Today it's facts. The other day when I was talking about Erick and the story of our life. So it was very emotional for me. It's
narrative.
Yeah, it was very narrative. But today it's facts. And what do I mean by that? So for example, I looked up the difference between Florida. I'm from Florida. Erick and I are from Florida. And I was in mental health there. And we have a term that's called Baker acting. So if someone has a mental health crisis, law enforcement does not take them to jail. Instead, they Baker act them. Law enforcement can do it. A mental health specialist.
Even if it's a crime that was committed, they could take them
They can look at them and go, this person is in mental health crisis. We are not putting them in jail. They need mental health help, okay, period. And so I investigated a little bit further and I said, what does Utah have that's similar to Florida's Baker Act? Okay, you guys have something very similar. And I wanted to share that with you because I wanted to verbatim speak of this. So you have what's called the Utah Code, State Statute 62A-15-631. A person with a serious mental illness who is in danger to himself or others should be evaluated by 2 licensed mental health professionals, given the right to a court hearing, legal counsel, and humane treatment, treated in the least restrictive setting. Okay, I knew you'd laugh at this. And this is me quoting it. This is not me just, ad-libbing. This is me telling you this is how it reads. And assigned an inpatient or outpatient care if they meet the criteria. Well, we all know driving down the road doing 100 miles an hour is in danger to society and himself. That instead of putting him in a care center, he is put in solitary.
Yeah.
So they've broken all of these rules that they wrote.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not like they have to perceive it. He's been diagnosed.
Correct. That's another part in it.
By the most fortified position in the government that's supposed to take care of veterans. They're the ones who said Erick has post-traumatic stress, TBI, and all of the things, and he should be afforded all of those rights because they don't even have to guess.
That is correct. And it went further to evaluate, what happened with Erick. So his legal right was this. He had a right to an evaluation.
He never got it.
What does the law say about that? 2 mental health professionals must evaluate him.
Yeah.
How they failed?
Secondary opinion, right? So
correct.
A different,
Right. So you can't have someone that comes in and says yes or no.
Yeah.
Right. You have, different parties.
He didn't get that.
Neither one.
Nope.
They still have not done a psych eval on him.
Wow.
Even after you read the letter where you even podcasted about the fact that I went to court saying to maybe, it's in the court document that says you had an opportunity the first go round and didn't. He lost it in your courtroom. Then my head gets injured. So now, you had an opportunity again. Now we got number 2 and now we're at number 3.
Yeah.
And I've still asked you for a psych eval and nothing has been done. They've not sent anyone to that jail to speak with Erick. They're not addressing his mental health status. They've put him in solitary confinement. This will be interesting to you. So it says, how did they fail? No proper mental health evaluations. Number 2, a right to a hearing. Person must be heard before he's committed to anything, okay? He's not had any hearings. As a matter of fact, last week, you know what happened.
Yeah.
July 9th, they said,
we update? Yeah, let's update.
Yeah.
Give us the update on that. What exactly happened in that particular situation?
Okay, so this is I posted it online, so a lot of the people are seeing it. But what happened is 5 minutes before Erick's hearing, they locked him down in confinement, and they said that he was combative. And so I had a witness with me that was a friend of mine. We were in the mediation room, not meditation, sorry. Speaking to Erick on a call speaker. He sounded great. He was ready for the plea, ready to get out, ready to move on with his life. I walk into the courtroom, and his attorney ran over to me and said they've effing locked him down. He says it loud. I look over at the bailiff. I catch her eye. She looks away from me. I look over at McKay King. He's hunched over like, here we go, because they knew where I was going to go with this. I look at the judge, and I'm watching her body language. His attorney walks up and says, Your Honor, he has operator syndrome. We need to get him into a treatment. We have a place in Texas right now, another group of Green Berets and operators, we've got the facility for Erick. She says, I'm not sending him to Texas. That's outside of my jurisdiction. We already had enough time. We had a hard time getting him back to jail. I didn't know what she meant by that, but I'll explain it to you in a minute. Okay, so we'll go back to that. So then he says, let's bring his wife, Dr. Holmes, up here to explain to the courts why it's imperative that he go to this treatment center right now.
Yeah, it's not like there's one in the backyard.
No, there's not.
Heber.
And Utah fails at this. We've already looked at the facilities. They do not have anything. And everyone around is complaining about that. What can we do? What can we do? She looks over at me in the courtroom and she says to me, I've already heard from her twice, and I'm not going to hear from her again because we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for us hearing from her. She says it on court record. I get up.
Denying your constitutional right
correct.
To speak.
Well, also, another thing she violated is in Utah, there's called victims' rights. It's a state statute. And when I asked the court advocate, the victim's advocate, I'm not a victim here at all. When I asked her, I said, let me ask you a question. What are my rights? And she got real quiet and she looked at me. She goes, you have the right to be heard. That's number one. That's what it says, a right to be heard. I was not heard at all. So I left the courtroom. I immediately went over to the clerk's office and said, I did a request, on file. I filled out the form and said I would like to have all of his transcriptions, all the audio on all of his hearings, because it's going to show the eruption where he was screaming and they had to handcuff him, take him into the holding cell, and then bring him back. And I'm like, you just witnessed this. You just witnessed this firsthand. How are you not doing this psych eval on my husband?
And he's been diagnosed with a mental health
which I submitted
disorder
to the courts. And this is another thing that she's violated. The fact is, this has been presented to the courts. It's not just an attorney standing in front of the court saying, this man has PTSD, this man has a TBI. It is documented. I have provided them with every single thing that you have copies of. I've given those to you. He's got PTSD documented by the VA. We have a DOD card that says he's 100% disabled due to PTSD.
Yeah.
I have a card that says I'm the wife of a 100% disabled veteran, right? I can get on any base around the world. And I have Champ VA. He's 100%.
Yeah.
Okay?
We have it too, yeah, Champ.
Same thing with the VA.
You only get if you're 100%.
If you're 100%, right? The wife also gets the benefits. The VA says in their system that I'm not showing as next of kin, but yet I've got Champ VA. It's crazy. It is absolutely nuts to me. So anyways, we'll go back to that in a second. So I walked over into the clerk of courts. I fill out the documents. Then I leave and I immediately go over to the jail. And I think I've told you this, and people that know me from Florida and know what I've done in my system knows that I've worked with governors, I've worked with different politicians on rewriting programs, and I served on Grady Judd's advisory council. Everyone knows Grady Judd. And so I'm very familiar.
Sheriff.
Yep, Sheriff Grady Judd, right? Florida, great. He's an amazing man. He does it by the book. He's 5-star. And the reason they're 5-star is because they follow all the rules across the board. So I walk over, and so I know how the court system, I know how the sheriff's department should, operate, also prison. And I have a very good friend of mine who just wrote the prison reform with Senator Lee. Okay, so everyone's tagging me on this, and they're texting me going, you've got to look at the new reform. So I go over to the jail and I ask to speak to a supervisor because I want to know what just happened. They've got video everywhere. I want to know what just happened. And I meet with Lieutenant Harris. He sits down, we sit down together, and I look and I said, what
He's
happened?
a lieutenant in Wasatch.
Wasatch County.
Yeah,
Wasatch County is a correction officer, right?
Yeah.
So I said, what happened and why was he locked down 5 minutes before his hearing? He says he was combative. I said, what do you mean combative? He goes, he was combative. He wouldn't answer me. I said, sir, if you were being deposed right now, you would have to define combative. Define for me combative. Did he spit on you? Did he grab one of your officers? What did he do? And he said he was combative. I said, well, listen, earlier today, my husband was upset because you were making him mop the floors. If my husband is so combative, why would you hand a mop to a Green Beret? Makes no sense. And he looked at me like, oh my God. He goes, hold on a second. Let me go back and let me look at the film. So then he comes back out, he sits down and says, he was non-compliant. I said, what do you mean non-compliant? He says, well, he was given a direct order. I said, he was on a video. Everything's going to show what happened that day because I will make sure I get my hands on it. You have to provide these videos. You have to. And I hope that you don't erase them. And he looked at me and he goes, what do you mean by that? I said, everyone in the community knows that you guys like to delete emails.
Oh, yeah.
You like to delete videos.
It's on the record.
It's on the record. And I said the same thing with the judge over there, but I'll get to the bottom of it. I said, I will get to the bottom of it. So either you're going to be testifying and telling me who did this, someone will. The sheriff will, the judge, something will come about on the truth with what happened to my husband today. So I got up and I left. I called the sheriff's department asking to speak to either the sheriff or the undersheriff, right? And I happened to meet with Prosp on Friday at 9 o'clock.
The undersheriff.
Undersheriff. And I said, I need you to look at me in the face and say why my husband was put in a solitary confinement. What happened? He tells me it was directed from the courtroom. I said, what do you mean it was directed from the courtroom? He said, right before your husband went before his hearing, a bailiff had walked over and said, the judge is not seeing him today, lock him down. This is what I'm dealing with.
This is what the undersheriff said.
Yes. Yes.
Did you get that on record? I assume it is on.
Yeah. And so then, he was like, well,
so
the
it
sheriff,
was from the courtroom,
from the courtroom,
not from the sheriff's
courtroom.
Or for the corrections.
They were not going to see him. Not going to see
Wow.
him. So I've since gone to the AG. I filed the big complaint with all of this. I've also requested the video. I've requested a copy of the video. But we have a hearing tomorrow, at 8 o'clock. So who knows what she's going to say. But I want her to continue on with this type of behavior.
Because they're used to getting away with it.
Yeah.
I can tell that in every courtroom I've been in. They're used to behaving a certain way.
Exactly.
I had an assistant district attorney out of the Valley say to my lawyer before I had ever stood in the courtroom for 1 second, say to my lawyer, Mike only cares about his profession and his reputation. And my lawyer went off on her. He's like, I don't know who you think you are, but you know how unprofessional and unethical that is? So she had a bias without even me stepping in the courtroom. And she's going to get, they're going to get the big complaints too, because I have all of the evidence, including documented filed complaints that were just blown off about my children. So they're used to operating a certain way because they're bullies. They're bullies in the courtroom. They're not used to people that are intelligent, that have intelligible, clear communication with facts. They're not used to that.
They're not used to that. That's you as an operator, and that's me coming from academics, right? I come from something that's research, it's truth, and that's it. I don't know anything but that. I can't come up with this fabricated. It makes no sense to me. I'm going to question you if you just say, just like I think I shared with you his medical records where they said at the chateau when they kicked him out, I was going through it and I'm laughing hysterically. I'm like, how can you even put this in the notes that my husband blew his nose in his hand? At least it wasn't a farmer blow. You know what happens with that, right? You can laugh about that, just snot everywhere. He blew his hand in his, he blew his nose in his hand and he was like, okay, give the Green Beret a tissue. He's being sarcastic. Of course we know that's sarcastic, but they put that in there. He was sarcastic when he made the comment. Why would you put emotion in there? This is not your job as a counselor to put emotion into anything. The second one was, and I know I shared this with you as well, there were 3 that really just bothered me. The second one was, client came down at 1:43 or 1:48 a.m. and he was acting paranoid and he was saying someone was coming to kill him, right? And he suspected it was a family member. Now you've put this whole narrative in here. He's walked outside to smoke, he comes back in, he's acting weird. And what I did was, right, I'm talking as the Chateau employee here, what I did was told him to go back to bed and I would have someone address it in the morning. If someone is having that bad of a mental health crisis,
a flashback,
that they're getting ready to die, an episode, and you say, just going back to the room. Do you understand the liability there? This is malpractice. And then the next day, we can't deal with him. We're going to kick him out. Call Wasatch County Sheriff and say, come get him.
Put him back in jail and then put him back in solitary.
Right. solitary confinement. At behavioral health center, this is the real one. This is the real kicker that really, gets me. Is that, and then we talked about this, that he is pulled aside into like one-on-one counseling, and his counselor walks in and looks at him immediately and says, "There's no such thing as alpha male." Well, this
is in Salt Lake City, right?
This is in Salt Lake City at Salt Lake City Behavior. I mean, he is, about to become explosive on this because he's knowing. He said, in my mind, I'm like, don't open your mouth, don't say anything.
She's pushing her ideology.
Exactly, and you're supposed to stay very neutral in this industry, very, very neutral. And she says,
is she trying to trigger him?
Yeah, I think so, because then she says there's only alpha female. Well, of course the joke is out in the community, then people that know me, they're like, well, they haven't met you yet, I'm just laughing because, I would have gone toe to toe with her and said how inappropriate it was and everything else, which I've written up complaints already for the license board. But he then proceeds to say to Erick, when he starts talking of God, he says, my wife has brought me back around to God. We read the Bible, she does scriptures. She's trying to be very spiritual, trying to guide me down the right path of not responding with this anger, etc. And she says, I'm going to stop you there. You talking about God is offensive to me. So now his religious beliefs have been violated.
Is offensive to me?
Yes.
So she's supposed to be a neutral, unbiased, like helping him through these things.
But everything he says,
she's offended.
Firing back at him saying, you can't say that, you can't do that.
She have green hair? I'm sure she did.
It was purple,
it was
actually.
Purple
Yeah. You already knew that. But here's the thing. When the very next day, I raised so much hell, and I don't know if I can cuss on here, it doesn't matter, that the CEO from Behavioral Health calls me. This is what I mean. This place should never get another dime of federal money. Salt Lake Behavioral Health.
Okay. And it's probably referred to you by the courts.
Veterans Affairs and by the courts. Okay.
They're all in cahoots.
They're all in cahoots.
$145 an hour.
Exactly. A $35,000 30-day program.
Yeah.
Okay, we get it. Tax dollars just out the door again on this fruitiness. That's all it is. He calls me, the CEO calls me, Dustin, and we have a 45-minute conversation. And he says to me, first thing out of his mouth is, we put him on the wrong unit. I said, what do you mean you put him on the wrong unit? He goes, he didn't go to the military, the PTSD unit.
He went to the woke unit.
I said, yeah. He went to the addiction unit, right, where alcohol, and nothing against that, right? Everybody deserves help, but he doesn't fit in on this unit. And he says, but we can consider bringing him back. I said, sir, do you know what you've done to my family, my husband? I've got to now go back before the same judge with a stipulation that both sides have to agree to say, oh, he can go back because they messed up. I said, how unfair is that to Erick? And how unfair is that to everybody else who's gone through the same, system that's just beyond repair? It just needs to be burned down, dismantled, and a brand new start. I say that about the VA. The VA should not exist.
No, it shouldn't.
Should not exist.
It shouldn't.
You have people that are giving a diagnosis of 100% when they have no clue. Oh, I said this the other day to a bunch of veterans. Here you are, you've jumped, how many jumps? Here's got 100 halo jumps, okay? 80-pound rucksacks, how many miles did you guys have to run at any given time? Wear and tear on your body.
Oh, yeah.
Wear and tear on your body. But you come in complaining your knees hurt, your ankles hurt, whatever. Sorry, you got to prove that that's service related. Yeah. Why don't you go do it and let's see how you feel after a week of doing it? They couldn't make it.
Yeah.
So again, it's all this nonsense that they project their own feelings. We don't think he deserves it. That's how I feel about this. But the kicker with Salt Lake City Behavioral Health is this. So I told you earlier at the start of this podcast how Florida does, how they operate with mental health issues. They take the Baker Act, okay, but Utah has something very similar. Do you know what one of the centers are that the judge has an opportunity to send them to? One is, I think it's Wasatch or Utah State Hospital, right? That's on the list. The other one is the University of Utah, right? They have a facility. Guess what the other one is? Behavior Health Center. So if that's on your list, Judge, maybe, that you can send my husband who's having a mental health crisis and you can order him there because you have the power with your little javel here to say, I'm court ordering, just like you would probation, just like you would deferment, just like you would to a drug center, whatever it is, you have the authority to send him over there. But you didn't want to pull the trigger because I asked the court liaison or the victim's advocate, does the judge have the authority to send my husband to a mental health center? She says no, because it's biased. I said, what do you mean by biased? Well, I immediately went home and searched it, and it said, no, state statute says she has that ability. Did you know that law enforcement does? But
Before they even book them.
Yes. There is a law that states law enforcement can do it, a mental health specialist can do it, and the judge can do it. So 3 times I've appeared before maybe saying, my husband, holding papers up, has PTSD, he has a TBI, he's, his is all service-related injuries. Mental health, he wouldn't be speeding down the road doing 120 miles an hour.
As a 55-year-old man.
Being chased by law enforcement. They could die, or somebody else could die, but when we bring this before you, you deny it. Do you know also it says that when a family member comes before the court and says, we're asking you to put him in a facility of some sort, they have to listen? She denied me that too. So she's not only denied my request for him to get mental health treatment, she's now denied me as the victim to be quote unquote heard. And then she's violated every possible right possible, and under Erick's case, one of the things it says, veterans protection, right? That's a legal right? Under the 504 rehab law. They must accommodate PTSD, TBI, and his disability. That's what the law says.
That's the 3?
Guess what yes.
PTSD, TBI, and then the disability.
What the law says is they must accommodate the PTSD, the TBI, and his disabilities. What they failed to do is the VA records were ignored and his disability was dismissed. So there's a civil rights lawsuit that's coming at them.
Yeah.
I am suing the municipalities of Wasatch County, and I have a right to do that.
What about the comment that the judge made about keeping him in jail? You said there was a comment she made that related to keeping him in jail, and you said
when she was sitting on the bench, she said we had a hard time getting him back to jail, and I didn't understand what she meant. But later, when I was looking, I was reliving this movie, this nightmare, I realized what she was saying. She said it out loud. And, in my world in psychology, we analyze everything that everybody does, body language, comments, whatever. She told on herself. She wants him in jail. Because if she didn't want him in jail, she would have said, let's send him somewhere else. Do you know that I was told by an official and an employee at Behavioral Health Center, they said, let's not bring him back to jail. Let's take him to the hospital to have him admitted. And they said, no. If you take him there, you're now going to be in contempt. This person is a whistleblower.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
Wow.
That this person said this man has a mental health crisis.
And they said no.
You will be in contempt.
Yeah.
If you take him to the hospital.
And that was
bring
his
him
right.
back to jail.
Yeah, and that was his right.
So everything that has that he's covered under that umbrella, right, of his disability, has been violated at every angle. So tomorrow we go before the courts. And I do not have any place that I've recommended for him to go to because I want to put it back on her. She has a responsibility as a judge. She's lazy, period. She doesn't want to move. She doesn't want to act. She doesn't want to do anything that's by the law.
The answer is just keep them in jail?
Keep them in jail.
Because they're criminals?
Leaving there.
Yeah.
And we're just going to sit and...
After honorably serving this country. Protecting her freedoms while she makes these radical decisions or indecisions. And then he needs mental health help.
Exactly.
He doesn't get it at all. We're not talking about like a guy comes in, he does something crazy with drugs, with violence, and then he just says he needs help. We're talking about somebody who's been diagnosed as needing help, refused the help from VA, refused the help from the Utah justice system. It's insane.
And there are other, Utah codes that talk about a court-ordered commitment, right? And again, I've printed this out. This is not just me making this up. And it says the legal standard states the individual, A, has a mental illness, which we know, right? PTSD, that's exactly what that is. Number 2 poses a substantial danger to self or others and is gravely disabled. Number 3, lacks decision-making capacity regarding treatment, which he did.
Yeah.
He's getting kicked out of every facility they've put him in. Number 4, has no less restrictive treatment alternatives.
He fits all of those. And
I'm just like,
is that Utah? Is that a Utah statute?
This is it's Utah Code State Statute 62A-15-631. This is Utah statute. This is
Utah law.
Utah law. So again, I just sit here and I'm like, how is this happening? But it has to be exposed. It has to be challenged, whether it's comfortable for them or not. But I will say this, Mike, that the sheriff's department has made moves, because when I spoke to Probst, I said,
he's good.
You
He's
have
a
a
good
responsibility.
Man. I heard he's a good man.
Yeah,
I don't know him, but
I slid the paper across the desk that day, and I said, you have a responsibility per this, and this. As a law enforcement officer, if you see corruptness with a prosecuting attorney or a judge, you have a responsibility to report them. Has that been done? Has this sheriff's department reported them? And then Erick said the second I left that meeting that day, everything flipped. Personnel were being moved, so I feel like there's positive traction here today.
Yeah, I will say this about Wasatch, it's the sheriff's department, because I know a lot of those officers. We're not friends, but right. I know them, and I know there's a whole bunch of drama with the sheriff, but I also know that those guys are good guys. There's really good people in that department, and the leadership. Which I'm just saying, like, there's drama. I don't even know, because I don't involve myself in any of that drama, but there is issues with Rigby. He's going through all these things.
Yep.
But what I know is, if the sheriff's department is making moves because they're doing the right thing at their level, that's a good sign.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And you have to remember something when it comes to that type of organization. You have an elected official, which is Rigby.
Yeah.
And then you have an employee, which is
undersheriff, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, who's just doing the job.
He's just doing his job by the law.
Yeah.
Right? So again, there's oversight on the sheriff's behavior as well.
Yeah.
And so
what about how do you fight corruption with the amount of corruption I've seen with my exposure to district attorneys, with state attorneys, and then the judges, is I have a litany of just packets of violations of ethical behavior, of codes of conduct, of Utah law, of my constitutional rights, including due process, which I'm filing. I mean, I literally was going to contact the ACLU.
I'm doing the ACLU.
Because it's like,
exactly what it is.
Most of the stuff that I see them stand up for, but I'm like, I fit all the brackets. I'm a minority. Yep. I'm 100% service-connected disabled, total and permanent. I'm a veteran.
Yep.
I'm a business owner.
Yep.
And I pay taxes, and I'm law-abiding. I've never committed a crime in my life. And the way I see these people treating me, what I thought out the gate is like, if they're treating me like this, and I have legal representation that I'm paying for, how are they treating everybody else in the state?
That's how I feel too.
Just a caveat, like I did talk to a veteran who was charged with domestic violence. He woke up in the middle of the night. He started attacking his wife in sleep. He was sleeping.
Yep.
He didn't know what he was doing.
Yep.
He woke up, realized what he was doing. He was in shock. He drove his spouse to the hospital. She said, this happens all the time. He's never attacked me, but he was in a dream. I could see it. He blacked out.
Yep.
They arrested him.
Yep.
They denied him bond.
Yep.
The community safety plan recommendation was to keep him behind bars because he was a danger to society.
Yep.
He was denied veteran court because there is a veteran court because they said it was such an egregious crime. It's like the dude was blacked out having a flashback from post-traumatic stress from his war trips in the Army.
Yep.
And he acknowledged what he did.
Yep.
He admitted, his wife explained it, and you got this dude behind bars for a year. He was in jail for a year when I talked to him. Which is insane. I'm like, this is how Utah treats their veterans?
Exactly. That's why the community's in an uproar. Every time I visit the coffee shop, brand new folks walk in. Brand new people come in and say, I need to talk to you. Thank you for what you're doing. And I always say I have to thank Marina Knights, who wrote the article, right? Because her initial article was just generic. It was like, hey, there was a high-speed chase, blah, blah, blah. I jumped online because his brother sent me the article, and he's like, uh-oh, Erick's in deep crap now. And I reached out to her in an email and said, if you want to know the real story, I'm the wife. That's how this started. And so she got involved and she was like, oh my God, I had no idea. She said that Park City, and we can consider Park City liberal as they can be, everyone's on Erick's side. They're like, how are we treating our veterans?
Which is wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I will say something about this. When it comes to veteran care, it's very bipartisan. Everyone that I speak to, how is this happening?
Yeah.
This guy served, it doesn't matter. So I feel like the movement is in a positive motion. I look at it as what happened with President Trump, right? The red wave, it's coming. It was slow, but it took a minute for everyone to flip that needle back over. to the right side, right? Because at first it was like 20% of people, they're like, oh, he's just upset he lost the election. And then, you see the needle start shifting to the 50%. It wasn't until that man was shot to where they're like, whoa, there's a lot of people coming after this man, and he's right. And
it's
then
real. Yeah.
All of it's unfolding, and all of it's being exposed, right? The real truth of corrupt judges, corrupt courts, corrupt systems. And he's not sitting down for it now because he went through it. And this is the same thing, Erick's going through it right now. Erick's been arrested 18 times in different places, and there have been very good systems that are like, this dude needs help. He needs to go get treatment, and they've let him go. This system here just wants to hold their thumb on him and say, no, he's a bad guy. We're not going to give this to him. But you're right about Veterans Court. Why is it Wasatch County does not have a Veterans Court? They should. That's a violation of his rights. Even the VA recognized it when they said, we're going to get involved and we're going to see where we can put him. And they went to behavioral health. They're all in cahoots together. We're going to send him over here. Yep, you're right. Here's your $30,000, but you're only going to go over here. I wrote an article today. I think you saw that. It was about tier 1 operators. And that needs to be a different facility, right? These guys should not be going to these community care centers where they're sitting in a group of people that have no idea what they've done, what they've gone through, what has happened to their bodies.
They don't even know the questions to ask.
They don't. And that's where I have to stand tall. And I'm getting a lot of support. I put it out there. This is my life. This is the truth. Just like me sitting here with you today, I have to speak the truth because the truth is what sets you free. It's the real thing. It's not pretty. It is not pretty. It's raw. And some people are like, how can you do this? I would be embarrassed. Why would you be embarrassed? My husband served this country.
Yeah.
And he deserves the best care ever. And I will continue to fight. If it's against 1 million people, I will fight that fight for him because I know that whatever comes about with Erick's case,
it's going to help others.
Everyone else.
Last question.
Yep.
So you have a victim's advocate, right? A victim's advocate.
Yep.
When you tell a victim's advocate who's used to campaigning for a victim, which this to me is one of the most insane things that I've seen in the court system, where it's like, you're a wife, right? Mm-hmm. If your husband, let's say he didn't have PTSD, let's just say he made a mistake,
yep.
right?
Yep.
He got drunk, things happened,
yep.
mistakes were made.
Yep.
It seems like the victim's advocate in Utah, their perspective is burn them to the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're a victim and we're going to protect you at all costs. Mm-hmm. Because I saw it where with my deal, the victim's advocate was telling her things that were going on behind the scenes,
yep.
and making her feel like she was in danger. She's like, if you want, you could leave the state because I know you might feel like your life's in danger. And she's like, I don't feel like my life's in danger.
Same.
What are you talking about?
They even told me that they would pay for it, and then they would come after Erick for retribution.
Wow.
And I said, I'm not fearful of my husband. I've been begging everyone to give him help.
So what's their response to something like that?
Silence.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I challenge it, just like your wife or whoever else. There's many veterans out there just like you that their wives are going, this is not it. We're asking for help. We're asking for my husband to give him help. I'm not a battered wife.
They don't want rehabilitation.
I'm not a battered wife.
Yeah.
No.
They want to destroy families. Yeah. They want to rip them apart. They want to put veterans in prison. And that's where we're at. I mean, I haven't seen anything other than that. I haven't seen one judge stand up for a veteran. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen one story of a positive outcome for somebody suffering from mental health. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen one good news story in the state of Utah when it comes to a radical and broken justice system.
Yeah,
not one.
I agree.
All right, so we got to do a part 3 next week because tomorrow is the hearing. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
I'll try to get this podcast up as soon as possible because whatever the outcome, right after your hearing, I want it to drop. So if you're listening to this, then we're going to get you the update as soon as we can, and then you could update via your social media links, which are linked down below in the description, right?
Yep.
I'll give you last words, last thoughts.
Again, I just want my voice heard as the wife of, a Green Beret who served this country, and any other veteran that's going through the exact same thing, where a system is against them instead of for them. And you made a valid point a minute ago. These are elected officials, right? This judge was elected. If she sees a problem with veterans that are coming before her in that courtroom, Why isn't she making a systematic change? Why isn't she asking for the Veterans Affairs to get involved or funding to say, why can't we implement a veterans court with a facility over here?
Why is she being proactive? Like, why?
Why are they not being proactive?
Why would you not stand up and be the hero in this story?
That's what I would do. We got a problem here. Let's fix the problem. And we're not fixing the problem.
Dude, they're trying to bury Erick underneath the jail.
Exactly.
Because they want the problems to go away because they don't want to have to do their damn job.
That's it. Lazy. I call it lazy.
Lazy.
Yep.
Oh, gosh. Okay, one thing I'm going to do, too, is put the points of contact for people that you could reach out to file complaints or to exercise your First Amendment right and let them know how you feel about how they're treating veterans. We'll link those maybe to the judges or to the IG's office.
And I want to add one more thing real quick, Mike. I know we're at the end here, but if any veteran can go to my website, we just uploaded a document. It's a fill-in form, and it's sending us data, right? So we have a spreadsheet and a database that we're creating right this minute. But I would like any veteran who's experienced the same thing, please go on our website and fill out the questionnaire and give us information. If you've seen the same thing with other judges in other states, in other VA systems, I want to hear their story because I want to comprise this. You know, I'm a researcher, so I want to really put all this together.
This is a national issue,
right? It's
a
national issue. I want to hear from veterans. Go on our website, and it's Combat Support Institute. Fill out that form. There's an area down there you can write in your own information. Tell us what state you're from. Tell us what you've experienced in court. Did they afford you Veterans Court? How did the VA help you? Did they not help you? We want to know it all so we can put together this bit of information and take it to the next level.
I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much. You're doing a good job. And I mean, if you don't do it, who's going to do it? I mean, it's not like a veteran can advocate for themselves because the first time we start talking about these issues, they just shut us up.
Yeah.
And they say, well, you're crazy anyway because you've been diagnosed.
Right.
But when the B team is getting involved, it's the right answer. So
yeah, well, thank you for that.
Thank you for the hard work, and then we'll get to the part 3 later, guys. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. If you're listening to this on YouTube, make sure you follow Spotify or listen to it in Spotify, and vice versa. I'll link it down to YouTube, which is Mike Force Podcast, and make sure you subscribe to that channel. Appreciate you guys.